This is the Quizizz 8th grade math SBAC review, part 5. For number 1, you need to find the volume of the cone and round to the nearest tenth. Use 3.14 for pi. So to find the volume of the cone, the formula is pi r squared multiplied by the height divided by 3. The way I remember this formula is veggie pies are too hot, so I cut it into thirds. And I think of a cone has 3 sides, so that's how I remember to divide it by 3. Pi r squared times the height is the formula for a cylinder. A cone is 1/3 of a cylinder. So the radius is 5, so I have 5 squared, and the height is 12. 5 squared is 25. 25 multiplied by 12 is 300. 300 divided by 3 equals 100. So the volume is approximately 100 multiplied by pi, which is 3.14. So the volume is approximately 314 cubic inches. For number 2, we need to find the area of the circle. Area equals pi r squared, or the way I remember is apple pies are squared. So think of a square apple pie. So the radius of this circle is 3, so I have 3 squared, which is 9, so 9 pi. 9 multiplied by 3.14, the approximation of pi, is approximately 28 and 26/100 squared centimeters. For number 3, we need to find the volume if the height is 10 inches. So the volume of a cylinder, the formula is V equals pi r squared multiplied by the height, or I remember as veggie pies are too hot. So the radius of this cylinder is 3 inches. The height is 10 inches. So 3 squared equals 9. 9 multiplied by 10 equals 90. So the volume of this cylinder is 90 pi inches cubed. For number 4, I need to find the volume of this cone. The formula for the volume of a cone is volume equals pi times the radius squared multiplied by height divided by 3. Again, the way I remember is veggie pies are too hot, so I cut them into thirds. So the radius is 3, and the height is 6. 3 squared equals 9. 9 multiplied by 6 is 54. 54 divided by 3 equals 18. I'm going to multiply it by pi, and I'm going to approximate of 3.14. So the volume is approximately 56 and 52/100 cubic inches. For number 5, what 3D shape is a soccer ball? A soccer ball is not a circle. A circle is 2-dimensional. 3-dimensional would be a sphere. For number 6, I need to find the volume of a hemisphere. And remember, a hemisphere is half of a sphere. So first you're going to find the volume of a sphere and then divide it into half. The formula for finding the volume of a hemisphere is the formula for finding a sphere is right here, 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. And then I'm going to multiply it by 1/2 or divide it by 2 at the end, so I get half of a sphere. So here's the formula for the sphere. Then at the end you divide it by 2 or multiply it by 1/2. The other way is I could just divide it by 6, because if I were to simplify this, the denominator, 3 multiplied by 2, equals 6. So at the end, instead of dividing it by 3 and then dividing it by 2 again, you can just at the end divide it by 6. So I'm going to show you both ways. So the radius of this hemisphere is 4. So r cubed, we get 4 cubed. 4 cubed is not 12. 4 cubed is 4 times 4, which is 16, multiplied by 4 is 64. So now we have 4 multiplied by 64, which is 256. Well, that's the same as I would have gotten up here up at the top. If I bring it back here, we would have gotten the same thing on this side. But instead of dividing by 3 and then multiplying by 1/2, I'm just dividing by 6. And you'll see what that looks like. So 256 divided by 3 equals 85 and 3/10 repeating, still multiplying by 1/2. We'll skip that step here because we're not multiplying by 1/2. And so 256 divided by 6 is 42 and 67/100 pi. Here, I'm going to multiply or divide 85 and 3/10 repeating by 2, and I get the same approximation either way. For number 7, I need to find the volume of this figure. And this figure is half of a cylinder. So I'm going to use the formula for the volume of a cylinder. And then what I'll do is divide it by 2. It's similar to finding the volume of a hemisphere. You find the volume of a sphere, then divide it by 2. Well, cylinder is the same thing. This is half of a cylinder. So volume of a cylinder, veggie pies are too hot. So pi multiplied by radius squared multiplied by height. So the radius of this figure is going to be 2.5, because the diameter is 5. Half of 5 is 2.5, or 2.5. The height is 9 feet. So now we're going to simplify this. 2.5 squared is going to equal 6 and 25/100. 6 and 25/100 multiplied by 9 equals 56 and 25/100. Now we're going to divide it by 2 because it's half of a cylinder, which equals 28 and 125,000ths pi. So now I'm going to approximate the value of pi, 3.14, multiply that, and I get the volume is approximately 88 and 3/10 cubic feet. For number 8, how do you find the volume of a sphere? So volume equals 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. One of my students came up with a clever way of remembering this is Veronica bought 4 pies at Ralph's for $3 and shared it with her 3 friends. For number 9, we need to find the total volume of this figure. This is a composite, so we have 2 figures put together. We have a hemisphere and we have a cone. So the hemisphere plus the cone will equal the total volume. So in order to find the total volume of this figure, we need the formula for the volume of a hemisphere and the volume of a cone. 4 pi r cubed divided by 3, then multiplied by 1/2, or you're dividing by 2 at the end because it's half of a sphere. This is the formula for the volume of a sphere. Multiply it or divide it by 2, and you get a hemisphere. The volume of a cone is volume equals pi r squared multiplied by the height divided by 3. The radius of the hemisphere is 2, so we have 2 to the third power. 2 to the third power is 2 multiplied by 2, which is 4, multiplied by 2 is 8. Now we have 4 multiplied by 8 is 32. Now we have 32 divided by 3, or I could do 32 divided by 6, because 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. So by simplifying this, 3 multiplied by 2, I get a denominator of 6. So 32 pi divided by 6 equals 5 3/10 pi, which is approximately 16 75/100 cubic inches. So that's the volume of the hemisphere. Now we have to find the volume of the cone. So the volume of the cone, the radius of the cone is 2, and multiplied by the height, which is 4, and then divided by 3. 2 squared equals 4. 4 multiplied by 4 is 16. So we have 16 pi. 16 divided by 3 is approximately 5 3/10 pi, or 5 3/10 repeating pi. Multiply that by the approximation of pi, 3.14, and we get the volume equals approximately 16 75/100 cubic inches. So now we add the total volume of the hemisphere plus the volume of the cone gets the total volume of the figure, which is 33 5/10. But the directions said round to the nearest whole number. So we go to the nearest whole number, go to the right. That is 5 or higher, so we're going to round up to 34 cubic inches. For number 10, we need to find the volume of this figure. This is a composite. We have a cone and a cylinder. So the cylinder plus the cone will equal the total volume. So we have the formula for the cylinder plus the formula for the volume of a cone. The height and the radius for the cylinder. So the height is 10, the radius is 6. So we have a radius of 6 squared, and the same radius for the cylinder. And the height of the cylinder is 12, that was given. The height of the cone is 10. So now we're going to simplify both of these. So now we have 6 squared, which is 36, multiplied by the height. And here we have 6 squared, which is equals 36, multiplied by the height. For the cylinder, we have 36 multiplied by 12, which is 432. For the cone, we have 36 multiplied by 10, which is 360. Now we need to divide 360 divided by 3, which equals 120 pi. Now we have the volume of the cylinder plus the volume of the cone equals the total volume of the figure. And 552 pi multiplied together, we get an approximate volume of 1,734 cubic meters.